Youssef Bashir, who grew up in the Gaza Strip, enjoying a beautiful life with a very substantial 3-floor house, a plantation with dates, fruit, some livestock, a large greenhouse, quite a bit of acreage, which had been in the family for 300 years. When he became a young teenager, or actually when he was 11, there was an uprising among Palestinians. Therefore, the Israeli soldiers moved in. While he was growing up, the next 4 years, some very young soldiers came to live in his house, moved in, were quite demanding. So you have the young occupying forces and you have the young people in the family, 8 of them. And a father who was highly educated and was a headmaster of a high school. The high school that the author Youssef Bashir went to. Because of his experiences, which you'll hear about, he's been telling his story for quite a few years. He's around 31 now. He's living in this country. And the focus of this service is not to be like the political scene, which is very complicated, but the concept of peace, forgiveness, and improving our lives altogether. So I do believe that Ben has the video ready to run it. Can you do that, Ben? Let's see who Ben is.
Get to the right window. Okay, there it is.
So we turn now from that uneasy situation in Colombia to one of the longest running conflicts in the world, the Middle East, where the US also has a massive stake and the Trump administration is slowly rolling out its peace plan. Youssef Bashir was just 15 years old when an Israeli soldier shot him in the back outside his home in Gaza. But in the months after the attack, he would see a different side of his occupiers as a team of Israeli doctors helped him learn to walk again. Now an adult, Bashir has become an advocate for peace, following in his father's footsteps. He documents this journey in his memoir, The Words of My Father. He spoke to our Alicia Menendez about how he managed to forgive.
You were born in 1989. Describe to me the Gaza of your childhood.
The Gaza of my childhood was something more of a fairy tale movie, at least in my mind. I saw a beautiful farm, beautiful house, beautiful family, laughter. There was a settlement next to our house, but everything was calm, and I thought that it was going to be that way for the rest of my life.
And what changed?
It changed in 2000. In 2000, things changed drastically when the Second Intifada started, and the soldiers who were just dancing to Arabic music, you know, throughout the 90s, were now shooting for no reason at my house, knowing that we're inside the house. And so from 2000 until 2005, that world that I took for granted was never the same.
And you're seeing this through the eyes of a child who's watching your neighborhood change. Zoom out for us, geopolitically, what was happening in Gaza at the time?
At the time, the peace talks failed. Camp David, Arafat and Ehud Barak, they couldn't make a deal. And so the Second Intifada broke out, especially after the visit of the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to Haram al-Sharif in Jerusalem. So a lot of demonstrations, a lot of protests against the soldiers, a lot of arrests, a lot of killings. It was an all-out war, something I've never seen before. I've heard my elders in my house talk about the First Intifada and the previous wars and clashes that happened between Israelis and Palestinians. But this was my very first time to see it in real life with my own eyes.
Your father had an unshakable belief in living peacefully alongside the settlers. What is your suspicion about why he believed so firmly in peace?
I think that he was raised very well by his mother, my grandmother, and he had the secret to everything. I actually mentioned that in the book, is his connection to God. That was, I am a Muslim. I don't have to make a scene of it, and his connection and faith in his religion and in his Creator brought him closer to his house, to his friends, to his family, even his enemies.
How did your father's belief in peacefully coexisting with his Israeli neighbors shape you?
They were difficult for me at the beginning because I watched him. I watched him strongly believe that we are from nowhere else but Gaza. I mean, I have 9 names in my name. My name is Yusuf Khalil Salman, Ahmed Mustafa Khalil Salman, Bashir. And as a kid in the book, at 10 years old and 12 years old, I didn't care. But he took that to heart. I mean, that's all he spoke about. And his coexistence with the Israelis was the fact that they are also the children of Abraham. And as a Holy Lander, no matter what happens or what we do to each other, I'm always going to believe in the idea and the concept of the Holy Landers, of the children of Abraham.
And did you question his belief in peace?
I sure did. Not that I was just was born angry, but at the time, you know, we moved from living happily, building a house. He had his job, his family, his grandmother. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful living situation for me in Gaza. Suddenly I see the soldiers not just shooting at the house, everything not just happening on TV. It's happening in my living room, where suddenly I had to ask for a permit to go to the bathroom. I had to ask for a permit to come home late. Suddenly I wasn't even fighting with him about doing teenage things.
Right. What you're talking about is September 2000, you were 11 years old. Your house actually gets taken over by soldiers. There's a passage that I would love for you to read on page 56.
Absolutely. A few days later, without any explanation, our neighbors from the base became our house guests. They simply walked into our home as if we were not there, moved into the upper 2 floors, and set up their guns on the rooftop. They had taken over our house in the blink of an eye, just like that. My older sister shouted at them, "Where are you going?" She tried to block their way, but they just walked past without even acknowledging her presence. Right then and there, they took over our house. From our top floor, they could see the whole neighborhood. They smashed holes through the upstairs walls to set up gun positions. They covered all the windows with camouflage netting and installed automatic machine guns at each corner of the roof. The guns had cameras attached to them so they could shoot whenever they registered danger. We assumed that the guns could shoot on their own, though we were not sure of that. Instinctively, I knew never to be in their sights.
What did the day-to-day actually look like? Sleeping, eating, using the restroom?
The soldiers took over the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor. Every night, at least 5 nights out of the 7 nights a week, they came downstairs and they moved all of us to the living room. Sometimes that begins at 8 p.m., at 4 p.m., or after midnight, 12 or 1. And they would keep us there for hours. Sometimes until the next morning comes, and all we do is run to the bathroom, try to get ready, and off to the car to drive to school with my dad. And sometimes they would keep us there for a week or 2 without any access to the outside world. And to get food, especially during Ramadan, we had to, Ramadan, as you know, is a whole festivity at night when you can eat. We had to go to the kitchen, escorted by a soldier, come back with the foods that my mom would end up just picking a corner in the living room and trying to fix us something to eat when it's time to eat. But all of that meant nothing to my dad. If you come home without an A on your exams, don't come home. I don't care if World War II is happening here. We are still going to survive and make it because that's what we do.
What was the experience of living with these so-called house guests in your home?
It was incredibly confusing. Just to call them that was appalling to me, and I blamed my dad for that. But he had his own vision and strategy. He didn't want them to use any reason to take away the house, the land that he spent his life farming and caring about. And my dad, I think he loved the land just as much he loved my mom and the rest of us. So I watched him when they demolished the greenhouses. And this was after, good 3 years into the whole experience. And here he is always advocating for peace and no, we are not going to turn angry. And I watched him watch his farms get demolished just like that. And I said, this is it, he's about to give up. And he didn't. He said he looked back, he watched the whole thing, and he said, okay, we'll figure out and try to build it again. And that was all he said after that. And to this day, I just remember how, is he a real human being? And today, I'm glad to tell you that he was the best human being I've ever known.
Was there resistance from the broader community to the way that your father chose to treat the Israelis?
There was disagreement. His friends, best friends, they thought that this is difficult. I could never do that. There was a lot of justified anger that was going on in the house. But in the end, they all applauded his stamina and his belief that all he needed to do is not leave the house. Some neighbors left, and their houses were demolished a couple of hours later. So my dad didn't want the same to happen to his house.
You're living in the home. You, your grandmother, your siblings, your parents, quarantined to a living room. Soldiers are on the top floor. And then on top of that, your house also became a satellite studio for international media. What was it like to have that much attention on your living situation?
It made me feel normal again. It made me feel that my dad wasn't all by himself. And he got nearly 500,000 postcards from kids in high school, teachers, ordinary people from across the world, India, Canada, US, England, including Jewish people, who told him, we heard about your story, and we watched your story, and we saw what you're trying to do, and we hope that you will continue to live in the house. Watching that, observing, I was a kid, so I wasn't getting all the attention, and I wasn't, I was always, can I come here, can I go there, whether it's my dad or the soldiers. I remember being impressed that maybe this guy had a plan after all. I'm gonna get the attention of the press, I'm gonna be who I am, I'm going to tell them how I believe and how I see the world, including the soldiers who are occupying my house for no reason. And hopefully that sends a message to the soldiers that we're not alone. And maybe they have to do whatever they have to do, but they're not going to demolish the house. They're not going to shoot all of us without anyone noticing. Because many moments it came close to us thinking they will just do that.
You write about a series of incidents in which you either witness violence or are proximate to violence. What happens when you're 15?
When I was 15, I left school. I stayed behind because I tried to make every minute outside of the house count. So I stayed behind to play some pickup soccer and wearing my favorite first authentic soccer t-shirt, AC Rome. And I saw my dad and 3 United Nations officers at the tower where the soldiers are, ask for a permit to enter the house. For some unknown reason, I will never know, I decided to drop my bike and sit in on the conversation with my dad, between my dad and the three Americans. They were granted a permit to visit for 15 minutes. After 5 minutes or so, the soldier asked them to leave. And so they, without questions, they got up and walked back to their car. And as I watched their Jeep back away from the house in the driveway, my dad is in front of me, and I remember just waving with my hand by, and the soldier at the tower shot me. And right then and there, I lost control of my lower half, and my dad just feet away from me. I felt that he was so, couldn't be further. I couldn't even speak. I didn't feel pain. I was trying to figure out what just happened. And I remember my grandmother was 85 something, attempting to run. My youngest brother running and kicking a chair while running, and my mom running. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. Mm-hmm. And he comes back around, shoves me into the UN car and off to the hospital.
It was an Israeli soldier who shot you, but it was also an Israeli doctor who saved you. How do you reconcile that duality in your own mind?
To watch the people who inflicted tremendous amount of pain on not only me, but the rest of my family and the rest of my people. I've known the Jewish people through the settlers and the soldiers my whole life. The best representative of the Jewish people was my dad. It wasn't the soldier and it wasn't the settlers. And then to watch the very same people ask me which smiley face describes the level of your pain. Can you move your toes? Can you lift them? Can you try? That is, I think, the greatest gift I have ever received in my life, to see the human side of my enemy, because that spared me from a great deal of having to hate them for the rest of my life, and the soldier who shot me for no reason, because that showed me the light of what I can do next.
Both the experience of being held prisoner in your own home and the experience of being shot as a 15-year-old, unbelievable story. When's the first time you shared that story publicly?
At the Seeds of Peace International Camp in Maine.
Which is
organized by the organization called Seeds of Peace. They are dedicated to bringing the next generations of adversary, kids from Israel, kids from Palestine, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, to a camp in Maine to try to provide the future generations of these countries with that human connection.
The first time you share your story, what's the response?
I'll never forget it. I remember the Palestinians, the Israelis, and the Americans crying together, glad that I was alive. And it gave me hope that maybe, despite everything that we have done to each other, and despite everything that we will continue to each other, maybe I will use my experience to give that last touch of hope when everything seems that there is no more hope.
After spending the time in Maine, what was it like then to go back to Gaza?
It was hard, because here I am, okay, I believe in peace, no revenge, no violence, and I go back to, guess who? The soldiers in the house. Mm-hmm. Only this time I have matured, like never before. I've matured, and I treated the soldiers the way my dad treated them. Every time they are serious and do this, go there, I would just do the same thing he did to them, treat them as children.
At the end of the book, you write a letter to the soldier who shot you. I'd like for you to read a page. It's 213.
I wanted to hate you, but a miracle happened. No, not the miracle that I can walk again. Another miracle, one that was shown to me through my father's commitment to peace, my mother's unfathomable love, and the doctors and nurses who tended to me with the deepest compassion. It is the miracle of forgiveness. Without your bullet, I might never have understood forgiveness. You were created by the same God who created me. You have the same humanity as I have. You are part of the same family as I am. I forgive you, my cousin. In peace.
A peace offering. Why in the book this way?
Everything that happened in my life was because of the soldier and my father. If I'm going to bring it down to two people. And I spoke of the soldier and my father. I've toured 20 states throughout my 10 years in this country. And I've always spoke of the soldier and my father, the soldier and my father. And I don't have my father. I like to believe that one day I'm going to sit in front of the soldier, across from a dinner table, lunch table, whatever, and tell him what I've been doing since the moment he decided to shoot me for no reason. I think it would be powerful for me, and I hope it would be just as powerful for him. Because if I can sit down with the person who nearly killed me for no reason, then I hope everybody else can get over it and see the path forward.
What do you say to those who believe that what is happening in your homeland is an irreconcilable conflict?
I tell them that if God is capable of forgiveness, then why shouldn't we? The human beings who have done nothing but mistakes. We do wrongs. I end the book talking about that. We manipulate, everyone has their own interpretation. And God said, I could have made you into one nation, one tribe. But instead, I've made you into nations and tribes so that you get to know one another, not fight one another or persecute one another or assassinate or imprison one another. And that's always and forever will be my response to that.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No. Hello, Ben. Thank you. So I guess you can hear me. Can you, Ben?
Yes.
Oh, great. And then everyone else, I hope you're hanging in there and being flexible about, I think it went really well. And thank you, Ben, for your quick response. And there was a backup plan there. So I'd love to have a chance to discuss this video. If you all can, one at a time, maybe unmute yourself. And what I ask you, what did you find most notable about Bashir's story? Either surprising or something that will stick in your memory about his story.
Obviously, his forgiveness. And that was incredible.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
I felt his courage to stand up in some difficult circumstances and still think of peace and friendship.
I gather he still feels pain, but he did manage with a great deal of help from the Jewish doctors and nurses whom he got to. They were the first Jewish people that he had really been aware of besides the soldiers. So then all of a sudden they're saving him, cheering him on, helping him.
The letter that he wrote to the soldier was incredible, left me in tears.
I agree.
Mm.
Sometimes it's hard to forgive little things, much less
That's a big one.
life and death issues like that.
He was also so calm.
And he's told this story over and over again. There are several videos on YouTube, one of which has closed captions. I was planning to show that, but I was unable to do that because of this technical difficulty we're having. But this was a good one because it shows photos of the family and of the house and land, of the watchtower. I think that helps too.
Diane, do you know something else about the organization Seeds of Peace? I'm so impressed about that. I've never heard about it. Such an important job that they do.
They have a wonderful website. And if you go there, you can have all kinds of, you can get updates from them on your email. They show photos. They will give you a list of all the fellows. There's a fellow group of fellows like that he belongs to now. Yosef Shir belongs to the group of fellows. And yes, that is a wonderful thing to follow. It made me think of a couple of musical organizations that I know. In New Hampshire, Apple Hill Chamber Music Festival has a program just like that, except for working with Palestinian and Jewish and other children from countries that are at odds with each other. Musicians, young musicians. And I've been up there when they were spending time at Apple Hill in New Hampshire, working with the classical professionals and playing together. So we call it Playing for Peace. And there's another one in Jerusalem I just found, which I'd heard about, the Alpert Youth Music Center of Jerusalem, where they have Arabic and Jewish kids playing together, doing music. So it's music is a very integrative activity. Sorry.
My nephews were in the Israeli army. And one of my nephews came out of that working, or actually directing, an organization called Kids for Peace, they do something similar where they get youth together. He actually coming out from, after being in the army, I think has spent the next 20 years of his life working for various peace organizations in Israel. And then I know the one that he was very involved in, although I know he's not there anymore, was called Kids for Peace with the number 4. And they also do a similar program where they bring youth together, Palestinians and Israelis, and have them do camp activities and discuss peace. So there's that one too. Just began, I might as well do a plug for his organization. But yeah, it was interesting for me listening to that because I have relatives that were in the Israeli army. Just because they were in the Israeli army doesn't necessarily mean that they felt good about what was going on. Just saying.
Yes.
And it had an impact on them as well.
I'm wondering what some of those young soldiers thought because they kept changing guard. They didn't send the same kids. They're mostly very young. Some were from the United States. Some of they were pretty memorable, in not a good way, to this young man, Yosef.
He might even know I wouldn't be surprised if my nephew knows him because he seems to be very involved in that world. So. And I know he used to do a radio. My nephew used to do a radio show with the Palestinians together. They did some kind of radio show. I'm not sure what it was about, but I know when we went there to visit, we went to a Palestinian neighborhood that's between Jerusalem and the airport to go out to lunch because they have the best hummus in the world. And they argue about which places do, but it was one of his Palestinian friends' father's restaurant. Because there's like a settlement between Jerusalem and the airport. Someplace, I'm not sure what it was, I don't remember what it was called. But I think on both sides that there's a lot of people that would rather things be very different.
It takes older people like your relative and Yusuf Bashir's father to inspire the young, but then the young have to become aware and carry the ball, to carry the and become inspired. I'm wondering sometimes what some of the young soldiers thought later, because they would have heard of this case. It was in the papers.
It sounds like Seeds for Peace brings in not just Israelis and Palestinians, but other young people from areas of conflict. So I would think that would be interesting on, just having a wider mix, not just where you're from, but hearing the stories of other people other kids from other parts of the world where there are conflicts.
I agree.
Yes.
I should have invited my nephew to join us today. I didn't even think of it.
Oh, yes.
My nephews, actually, there's been several. There's several.
Okay.
I really enjoyed hearing the video. I can't wait to get my hands on that book.
It's a A wonderful book, and I'm going to pass it on to a younger member of my family. It's something we all deal with one way or t'other. It seems like in this world, we become much more aware in whether we're directly involved or we just have an opinion, or we think about it, or we try to help in some way. We're all involved.
That tactic of moving in the house and taking over, that was used by the Nazis in France.
Yes, that's so true, isn't it?
Was the house in a strategic location so that the soldiers could have scope out the whole neighborhood? Is that why they came in and took over the house?
You might have noticed that very, very substantial looking house. The upper floors would be strategic. And the big point of the home was that they had been there for about 300 years.
Oh, wow.
And gradually built that house, and the father was not going to leave. He wasn't going to back down. Then at one point, the Israeli soldier said, "You better leave. You better take your family and leave. Why don't you leave?" And the father said, "Why don't you leave your home?" So that's because it's my home. And the father said, "And this is my home." So he never backed down. He, despite a lot of pressure and cruelty, he refused to retaliate.
Wow.
No retaliation.
It puts the pandemic in perspective, the way they were so regimented and they couldn't go to the bathroom without a permit.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, I think not retaliating is important because, like, with I think that was one goal from Martin Luther King, is not to retaliate, because the slightest retaliation, on the scale of the act that's the act that you're retaliating against, no matter how small that retaliation is, it gets used as a reason to just blow everything out of proportion and to sort of up the retaliation against your small retaliation. So you need, in these sort of peaceful protest sort of movements, I think that's a really tough, sort of really difficult kind of thing to do, is not retaliate.
Yeah, it goes against the basic instinctive survival instinct.
Yeah, especially when you're, when soldiers have occupied your home and you're just, and what you're doing is trying to protect your home and your family.
Don't forget, though, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Both sides may want peace, but there are deep-rooted beliefs that make it very difficult. And I think you have to that. And, I think of Ireland, each side there were deep-rooted beliefs, historical beliefs. But I think that the hope is for the younger generation with some of these movements like the Seeds for Peace and other things. And this man who's the author of the book. I mean, that's the only hope from my point of view is something like that. Because they're such deep-rooted beliefs, and, you can't blame totally one side or the other. I mean, because, without getting into things about it, but, because there's reasons why they come to the table and they can't, quite come to a resolution. But the hope, I think, would be for the younger generation, hopefully.
Yeah.
Don't you think, too, that all the major religions basically preach peace, they teach peace?
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to make it a reality.
The human rules get in the way.
I feel like I'm taking a risk saying this because I don't want to, because I'm afraid maybe I wouldn't be understood. But I feel, not to take anything away from this young, well, he's still a young man, But if he hadn't been able to experience the love that he felt, that he had when he was much younger, and had the example of, well, not just the example of his father, but just experience unconditional love, I don't think in most cases you'd be able to grow to be able to forgive the other side. I say that only because if I was a victim of abuse at a very young age, and I know I come from a different perspective, I guess. So in a way, many people growing up there who wouldn't have had his experience growing up with love, being surrounded by love, wouldn't be able to make that transition to learn how to forgive.
I agree with you, Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, it's a definite advantage to a parent who's setting the sights so high and living up to them, and also staying warm and accessible. So that makes it quite a remarkable story, but certainly
I think this is why it's so important for the children to learn to accept and value each other at a young age. I think that Seeds for Peace is fabulous. I want to tell you about a song written by Fred Small.
Oh, yes.
He sings about the children, both on both sides, playing together out on the playground and tossing a ball around and just being with each other and having fun. And then later, the two boys grow up, one on each side, and they're in a war together. And one of them is captured, and his friend on the other side sets him free. And it's just so touching. I'll get the reference for that song.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, speaking of music, I would like to end with a quote from Paul Robeson, and then some music that's made by an Israeli ensemble called Faram. I think it's very beautiful. I've got it bookmarked so that Ben can play it, I believe, I hope. But I don't want to cut it short before. Has everyone had something to say? Want any more comments? Okay.
I just wanted to say that we hear a lot of these things about in Israel, all the explosive things, and we don't often hear about the way that Israelis and Arabs reach out to each other. My great aunt lived near Nazareth, and Nazareth has a large population of Arabs. And I don't know if it was weekly or monthly, the Arab women and the Jewish women of the kibbutz, where my great aunt lived, got together. And you don't hear things like that a lot on the news.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Now, sometimes we get the bad news, and that's about it. We can rely on getting the bad news.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. Now, I would like to read this final kind of quote to tie in with the music. Paul Robeson, the famed African-American singer. It's a reading in the back of our hymnal. I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail. Paul Robeson. Ben, are you able to turn the Faran ensemble? These are Israeli musicians sitting by the side of the water, appears to be the Mediterranean, playing Middle Eastern instruments. They have several videos. I thought this was particularly beautiful.
So did you send that to me, Diane?
I sent it to you. It's, I believe the second one, isn't it?
I think that second one was the Song of Affirmation again.
Really?
Yeah. They're both the same.
Oh my. All right. Okay. I don't know if I can do this quickly, really. But I can tell you about it. So the Faran, F-A-R-A-N ensemble. I shall write it here. Okay. Oh, I can't do this. Chat for everyone. Okay, we're gonna do everyone. All right. So Faran ensemble. It's called Faran ensemble. World music. World music. Whoops. Okay. And they're playing oud. Oud world music. Enter. Just do it. Okay. There we go. Speaker view. Speaker view. Okay, Ben. You didn't get that one. That's too bad.
I got. Let's see.
They have several YouTubes. There's one that's 7 minutes long. Are you able to find that?
Yeah, let me do a search for that.
He's a magician. He can do all kinds of things like this. I was thinking, you know, I've been using Zoom for months and I've been getting instruction. I've done it well for ESL and so forth. But once in a while, and we used to have this expression in World War II when I was a little kid. I was gremlins, okay? The gremlins got into the business. And
oh yeah, they're still saying it.
they're still with us, right? No. They have quite a few YouTubes, F-A-R-A-N. So actually, if you can find one that's 7 minutes long, that would be one of the shorter ones. And they're just beautiful. They take their inspiration from nature. And Faran means, it's a Wadi Faran. It's a dry riverbed that fills with water in the winter and crosses 3 boundaries of 3 countries and doesn't relate to the individual ethnic groups whatsoever. So that's why they got that name, Faran.
So Diane, is there a particular video you want me to show?
Just why don't you just pick one? You can see how long they are.
Kumbaya, is that a good one?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Very nice.
Okay, let's see. So I'm going to mute everyone again. And just give me a thumbs up if you can see the video when it starts.
Thank you, Ben. This is, thank you. It's just world music, as opposed, it happen to be Israeli musicians. But they play music from the area. And the instruments are, you know, Persian, Turkish, Israeli, right across the border. Music doesn't have borders.
You know what? If you closed your eyes, for me, it sounded like early Renaissance music.
Yeah.
The beat, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does.
True.
If you enjoyed it, go back online. Those of you who enjoy using the computer, you know, look for the Faran Ensemble, because they have different locations. They'll sit in the desert. They'll sit by the ocean. They tend to relate to the outdoors quite a bit, which is beautiful too, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. He's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Thank
nice
you,
to see
Diane.
your, Dick, it's nice to see your schnauzer. He's beautiful, or she. I'm not sure which.
Diane, great job.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was
hard. I worked hard, but then one has to change plans at the end. That's
Good improvising.
We had a couple of really handy. Sorry.
Very good choice of material, Diane.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Diane.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening to Youssef. The Palestinian cause is very, very close to my heart. So it was very touching to hear him talking.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you all showed up. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great to see everybody. Have a good
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.